Hello, welcome back. Search with Sean. Of course, there's another Chat with Sean episode, and actually, I forgot our guest was on the promo video, so you've already got a sneak peek. But yeah, as you can see, it is Fery Kaszoni, and it is a very second time on the show, so hence why you saw him in the promo video. But in case you don't know who he is, I will do a quick intro, and we'll get into like some cool topics. But yeah, Fery is the Chief Executive Officer at Search Intelligence. And plus he's found things like journo.com, loads of stuff. Check out his LinkedIn. I'll put you go and link it with him. I'll put the thing in the description. And he's obviously a legend in like the digital PR, SEO space. And yeah, it's a pleasure as usual to have you on.
Thank you, Sean. It is a pleasure to be back. This time with more hair, as we discussed just before the the intro. It's a pleasure to be here, and looking forward to having a great chat and sharing some insights and talking about lots of things.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to go through, and a lot's changed since we talked. But I think the thing that is interesting, people go and watch the one from last year. Is like a lot of the things you were discussing have come around and are actually happening. And it's just shows, doesn't it? And people kind of were thinking at the time, "Oh, that would never happen," and it has.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I guess one thing, like off the bat, I think it's good to like cover this because there is a lot of chat about it. But nowadays, are links more important or less important as they were, say, before all this sort of influence from AI and whatnot?
I think links, and we always, especially people who are involved in link building, we see this, and but links are more and more important, and they have been more and more important ever since Google died 1,000 times since 2020 or 1998, right? So since SEO died, right? Everyone is like, oh my God, SEO is dead, link building is dead, everything is dead. But with quality links and quality branding becomes more and more important as everything else becomes democratized. I think the most difficult thing to democratize is link building and brand building. And people say, oh, well, people searching ChatGPT or it's, Google is not important anymore. It's not as important anymore. No, Google is important because ChatGPT is actually Googling things to provide an accurate answer. So Google is going to become more and more important, even though maybe not that many people are going to search on Google because they are searching on ChatGPT, but indirectly, ChatGPT will still search on Google in Google Organic, which is the best algorithm to retrieve and present an accurate, fresh information. SEO is going to be more and more important, and link building is like links are still one of the most reliable ways to assess which page is more relevant than the other. So absolutely, link building is more important than ever. And anyone who just ignores links, I think they do find out that they don't rank as well as those who really engage in quality link building.
Yeah. I guess the only thing that's changed is that the power of a mention has increased since this has kind of taken over. But yeah, like you say, still, those backlinks are still powerful. And like you say, why wouldn't they be using that as a metric? Because like you say, it's one of the easiest ways to connect the dots, in terms of the future tools, because I know you've been vibe coding a lot, doing a lot of sort of projects around building certain things. One, how is that going to affect kind of tools in future, do you think, because of the development of AI and these, opening the door to like people building their own stuff, but also what are the current projects you've been working on, if you could describe those, because I know you're working on some very interesting projects.
Absolutely. I think tools are going to get democratized. Data is not going to get democratized. I think tools like Ahrefs are thrive because they have some of the best data that's hard to replicate. You cannot just build a data center that scrapes millions of pages or trillions of pages every month, just like that, right? You cannot just AI code that feature. Therefore, Ahrefs and all the other companies who have like really powerful data and really unique data that they collect with, like by difficult methods, right? That's hard to replicate. They will thrive. Any other tool that doesn't involve having a proprietary data or having a very unique set of prompts that are providing a result that's hard to replicate, they will get democratized. And I think more and more people will be able to build their own tools for various purposes in SEO, especially. I think SEO as we know it will probably change probably in a year's time. I mean, it's been changing exponentially in the past, let's say 12 months. But even more, it will change because more and more capable tools are going to come to life by lots of other people who have great ideas and who have not had capabilities to build great tools because they should have had a team of like 10 developers. Now they can really build it, and they will be able to build it even more in the future with AI coding. And the tools and the methods that are going to come to like the SEO world are going to change how we do SEO like a lot. I can envisage self-healing websites that are based on an AI layer. So the whole website will be an AI agent that will dynamically, minute to minute, adjust their pages, the content, the internal linking, and everything that makes a difference in terms of SEO and user experience. I can imagine that such platforms will come to surface very soon, like a living and breathing website. When you look at Anthropic Opus 4.6, if more models like that come to life, the future of what a website is going to be just completely different from what we can even imagine now. People say, "Oh, AI is like flop." Yeah, they talk about AI 1.5 years ago, but AI 6 months ago is not AI now. And I'm working, as you said, I'm working on lots. I'm probably writing, I know, tens of thousands of lines of code, like not writing, but getting AI to write code. I'm working on 5 different really, really advanced software projects, and I'm working a lot with AI. And it's just scary how good it is. And when this capability comes to the SEO and the SEO world, I know like people are going to say, "Oh yeah, you can never replace expertise." Yes, you cannot replace expertise, but you can enhance expertise in a way that you would have not thought it's possible even half a year ago. So the tools are going to change, the websites, the way you think of like, "Oh, I have a WordPress website and I press a button and I'm going to post an article." That model is probably going to fade out in the next 12 to probably 24 months. It's going to completely change. And I can see that. I can see with the capabilities of what you can actually build now with tools. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, I like to hear more about your own projects, but I think what's interesting is that one thing we can all agree is that even to this very day, even if you go back a year with the large tools, like, the ones we all know, the data they have, even Google to some degree, obviously they're a lot more accurate than those tools, but those tools are never going to have 100% accuracy in terms of like data they have. So that's one thing we can agree on. And then going forward, what we can all agree on is that it's going to be extremely difficult to measure because it's going to be so personalized and individual, the kind of things that people are putting into these, AI models or, AI mode or whatever it is. So how relevant do those sort of models become in the future when it's just literally like guesswork and going to be even less accurate than what it was before? So that's the I consider when I look at these things.
Very well said. And I think lots of things have been a guesswork in the SEO world ever since, like Google came to surface. Many things have been guesswork. Yes, we had data from Google, but as you said, it's going to become more of a guesswork and more over, okay, we think that people are going to, search for these on AI. Therefore, let's see where the brands are ranking for these prompts based on what we think that people might search for. And even with Google, like a huge percentage of searches or new searches that Google doesn't even provide data on. Sometimes you might have a keyword that's got like, as provided by Google, it's got like 10 searches per month, but the variations of that keyword can be thousands of searches per month, which, you don't have data on. Yet if you rank well for that topic, then you will have lots of business from that keyword. And that's been, the guesswork for many, many years. And it's going to become even more so with even more varied prompts that people are putting into chat and follow-ups and so on. Yeah, so every tool out there, I think it's like a guesswork, and we just have to, I think the thing that people have to focus on with their website is to just try to be an authority for the topic, not for a specific keyword, but for a topic. Are you a personal injury lawyer in New York? Well, focus on that topic and in general be an authority for that specific topic. And that's where you start ranking for all the other variations as well, right?
We'll get onto like your tools. Like, what have you been working on recently?
Yeah, we are working on, so the latest tool that we have launched, and I've been wanting to launch like a visibility tool, a search intelligence tool, ever since the inception of the company in 2014. The way I started the company was I discovered an SEO agency from London. I'm not going to say the name. I think they still exist. And they had a private blog network of 2,000 websites. And I discovered all of their websites. And I said, this is like almost like collecting intelligence information about why, their clients rank well. And it was so obvious. And I had big spreadsheets. And I said, I'm going to name the company Search Intelligence. And I always wanted to create a platform that centralizes all the, intelligence information about all the search intelligence information in a platform. It was just too complex. Before AI, it would have involved lots of development, probably many thousands of hours of development, and I just couldn't get there yet with the resources, and with the with the ambition of it being so right, it would have taken so much energy, but. Now with AI, we said we can build this like very fast now with all the technology that we have built in the past 4 years, and we can take the best bits of that and centralize it with AI into this platform. So we have launched this online visibility platform, which tracks thousands of prompts or hundreds of prompts for any given client. And it looks at where the brand is being mentioned. And then it scrapes all the citation sources, and then it recommends you actions that you can take so that you rank better, in AI search. And this is the latest tool that we have launched, but this is going to be like the central platform for like everything. For we also track the old school Google rankings, so that's also part of the platform. And then we're going to centralize all the information from analytics, from Search Console, from every place, and that's kind of surrounding the brand into one single platform. That's that's the latest tool that we have launched. So pretty excited by that.
Yeah, sounds cool. And yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting, as we discussed before, that how we can actually measure like how we're being seen across the entire internet. It's going to be hard to like really understand that. So
Yeah,
hopefully AI will be able to help us create sort of better tools to be able to get that, and without paying a arm and a leg, which
everyone who, and I've been a kind of skeptic of AI since 2022 when it came out, and I was like, AI is rubbish. We should not use it. But then as the models got better last year, I discovered like this is really good. Like it's becoming really, really good. And then now, with the latest models in the past few weeks, months, I was like, we can build crazy things. Like there are senior engineers at Anthropic and many other companies who admit they have not written a line of code for many, many weeks now. And it's only going to get better. And the most cringe thing to hear in like online is people saying, oh, AI is never going to be able to write as good code as humans. It's so cringe because they know it's not true. And everyone knows it's not true. AI will be able to write better and faster code than any other most human developers on planet Earth. And it's going to give access to crazy building capabilities for like visionaries or for entrepreneurs who just want to test the concept. Just go in, unleash 10 Claude Code agent teams, and it's just going to build something overnight for you, and you can test it in the morning. But I think, the capabilities of software building, I'm just so obsessed with it. It's just crazy what we can build now.
Yeah, and Spotify have said, like, I think since December that AI has written 90% of its code.
Yep, exactly.
and I use Spotify, and some of the new features is awesome. So, it's yeah,
It's like it's very, it's so cringe when you hear people and especially, developers saying, "Oh, it's just AI slop." Like, no, AI is becoming better, and just deal with it, accept the fact, and just go with the flow. Maybe we will all not have we'll not have jobs in half a year. But it doesn't help if we just sit back and say, "Hey, AI is bad. It's never going to be as good as humans or whatever." Like, I think AI is going to be better than most humans in most areas, like software, content. I think content writing, it's not good yet. But let me just see what's happening with the camera. Content that ChatGPT puts out now is not good. It's AI slop. But it's the worst it will ever be. And there are systems that actually can put out so good AI content that you would never think it's AI content. So content is going to be completely democratized. Good quality content, not just, AI slop. Good quality content at the level of a human. And I know this is, scratching the chalkboard with my fingernails. Software, content, research, most of the things are going to be democratized within a year or two by AI, and we just have to accept the fact that that's how it's going to be. And it's painful for me to even say this, but unfortunately or fortunately, we don't know yet. That's what's coming.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, and I think it's kind of like when change like this happens, sometimes people live in a sort of with the blinders on. They're kind of like living in denial. It's like you don't want to like admit that something could be coming in and totally changing your way of life and changing how things are operating in the world. And the fact is that, the thing I hear a bit like what you were saying before that really kind of, annoys me in a way is kind of just when people say, "Oh, well, look, people, when the general public take it up, then I'll believe it." But the fact is, like, if Google and OpenAI, Amazon, the people who run the world, basically, especially the online world, if they want to go full in on AI, which they do, and they're clearly making out they are, people won't have a choice. They're going to have to use AI, like they had to use the internet, like they have to use mobile phones. No one really woke up one day and said, "I'm going to use the internet." It was like, you have to use the internet to do this. You have to use the internet to do that.
Exactly. Or drive cars. People didn't want to drive cars when there were horses. They're like, cars are like not good. And then the Industrial Revolution, everything that happened, even people who were, I think there were people whose job was to light up the streets every night with, with fire, right? They were like, there were no electricity, and that was their job, to go and make sure that all the streets are have like light, right? And of course they were upset when things were coming in, and I'm upset, because it was great where you could just have a content writer write an article for, you pay the content writer £150 a day, you sell the content for £500, you have some other expenses, and you make money. Like, it was a great world, right? And I'm not happy. But I think we have to adapt, and we just have to find. I don't think it's going to be bad long term. I think short term is going to be a shock for me and for everyone, for every developer, for everyone who still wants to write code manually. I think it's going to be a shock. But if they say, "Hey, I can write, I can create a feature in one day, and like create a form that is fancy and has pop-ups or whatever, or I can create a full-on application in 12 hours now that's producing 50 times more output in a day than I used to," then those people are going to be like delighted and have fun, have unlimited fun with coding. So I think that's how we have to shift. How can we have fun with this instead of just being upset on new technology?
Yeah, I agree. You have to embrace it and adapt accordingly, because we're not in control of it. So, like, whether we want it or not, it's happening, and you have to roll with it. Let's kind of switch gears and go more into like digital PR side. But In terms of like, you've been putting out some great case studies as usual, but how can you leverage sort of celebrity news or digital PR? Because I think you've done some really good case studies recently. I think you could discuss them and kind of how you could fit, how others could perhaps work in that way as well.
I always said, even I spoke at a few conferences, I always said Elon Musk and Taylor Swift are the best link builders, because every time they do something, you can react and you can leverage the trend, or like leverage the hype in the news to add an opinion on behalf of your client, to hopefully discover some Google trends on behalf of your client and share that with the press. That helps journalists with extra insights. It's, I think, being open-minded, and the digital PR for leveraging celebrity news starts with the client, and with the way you sell the service to the client. You have to get the client to agree to be okay with a reactive PR, because many of them are not okay. Because a reactive PR piece is not going to talk about how great their revolutionary new product is, right? And most of the digital PR doesn't talk about that. But more so, like, a reactive PR doesn't really talk about the client. It just puts the client forward as a company who discovered a trend. So if you can get the client to agree for like jumping on trends, and to agree with almost like instant quotes that they can provide, then that's a good starting point. And I think you need people on the team for having like effective reactive PR that reacts to celebrity news. You need people who understand the media, who understand pop culture. You need people obsessed with pop culture. Some of our best digital PRs are people who are obsessed with everything that's happening in pop culture, in celebrity, all the gossip, all the celebrities. They are, their eyes and their senses are on like the pulse of the media. Every time a new movie launches, they know every detail about every actress, even what they eat and everything. And if you have these sensors kind of open, then you can leverage reactive PR. So every time there's a new movie launch and there's a celebrity, we always have people say, "Oh, what's their diet? What's their route exercise? What's their routine? Have they ever talked in a podcast or in an interview about their diet or what they eat?" And then we go back for many years and say, "Oh, this is what Margot Robbie eats to stay fit," right? And then if you have a fitness client or a nutrition client, you can immediately look at what they talked about in that interview, and then transform that into a stronger advice from the client, who's like a nutrition expert or fitness expert. Like, "Hey, these are the exercises you should do to have the same fitness level as Margot Robbie," or something like that. And that's how we always react to the news. Try to tie your client's expertise into whatever is trending, and then try to find different angles that you can push.
Yeah, it's great. And like I say, you always put out really great case studies. And like we've said last time, you're so transparent in kind of what you're doing, which is great and unique, and also you're talking about generally using that public accessible data,
Yes.
something that probably people don't pick up on enough because it's out there. And I guess with AI now, I mean, I know in my own research, like using deep research tools, easier to find than ever, this sort of data that might be hidden in government websites or whatever. So yeah, I don't know if you could touch upon that as well.
Yeah, data is a big thing. As you said, with AI now, you can just use deep research to find really good hidden like data sets. And again, it comes down to the creativity of the person. So I'm a big fan of AI, but I'm a big fan of AI in the hands of the right people. So give advanced AI systems in the hands of people who don't understand PR, who are not talented, and who are not great at their job. They will not be able to do anything with that AI. Every time we launch an AI tool, I'm always looking forward to handing it over to our great team members who already know how to do PR even without AI. We have launched an AI tool for digital PR called Olivia Brown. And we had many people signing up, different agencies, different freelancers, but also we had people who don't understand PR signing up. And people who do understand PR and who do understand what journalists like, what they need, and they provide that with the tool, they are smashing it. With the tool, they every month they are sending me print screens of like, hey, thank you very much for making this tool, for enabling it for us, and for helping the world. And they are smashing it. But we have people who don't understand PR, who are maybe an SEO executive who is just trying to create and pitch like blog style, articles to like journalists from like the Mirror, and it's not going to work because they need something else. So I think AI and data and all the capabilities that we have is great, but only in the hands of great people in the industry who understand what journalists need. So it's the same with data. You can have the best data sets, but if you don't have them, written up, or the campaigns created by the people who understand PR, then the data set is not going to be of any use. But I think now with AI, there's so many data sets like on government websites or on, there's a website called fixmystreet.co.uk or .com where people can report potholes. And it's very popular, there's lots of data there. And you can just go, and even with AI, you can just go and get an AI agent to just scrape all the pages, extract all the information, and create a story for you on like the pothole capitals of the UK. And it works. But then you have good people to really find the angles, really find the comparisons between different areas in the UK and how to phrase it and which journalist to pitch it to. But yeah, data is a big thing, and it's almost unlimited stories with data.
Yeah, I mean, even like any topic you can find, there'll be some sort of YouGov or whatever paper around it, like hiking or whatever sort of physical exercise. But you have got to be careful. Like I'm sure you'll know that obviously it still hallucinates. It still brings up 404 pages. It still quotes things that aren't really quoted. They kind of
that's exactly where the great people come into play, right? Because they detect these. When you have great people using the AI, then you have both of we have the efficiency, but then you also have like the good human reasoning that checks and ensures that everything is right before it goes out.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of, we'll move on to kind of more seasonal stories. I think this is like something that people struggle with because everything's pretty much been done. If you talk about Easter or Christmas or Halloween, like all those sort of typical stories come out every year about whatever. How do you stand out, and like how do you kind of approach these sort of seasonal based stories?
There's different ways to do it. One of the kind of most common ways that people think that you should do it is, you go and look at what others have covered in the past and you do something else. You come up with something unique. And that can work, and that can work like crazy. But the chances of it working are way lower than if you go back in the past and look at what they have, what journalists have covered, and replicate those same stories. Because it's a safe model. Every Christmas, journalists are going to cover, what foods should not eat. If you have a pet client, an expert in pets, if you present some unique, not unique, but some useful information, again, about, the foods that your dog should not eat this Christmas, then you will get coverage. But if you try to come up with something that nobody has ever covered in the past, it's a hit and miss. You either go for safe and look at what has been covered in the past and make sure to be the first one or the most prominent one who pitches that story to the right journalists, and you will get coverage because journalists need that story. Journalists know they will get clicks because they have gotten clicks in the past 10 years with those exact stories, and they will cover it again and again. So that's how you do seasonal stories. Just let go of the fact that, this story has already been done before. Great. That's a sign that journalists want experts in that, in that area. They want information on that topic because they will cover it again and again. So that's the secret of, how can you land coverage with regional and seasonal stories. go and do whatever they have done before because that works.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, to be fair. Like when you put it that way, it actually does make a lot of sense. And like you say, you can add your own sort of flavor into it with,
Yeah.
expert commentary and
Yeah.
imagery or video or,
Really.
new data if there is any and things like that. So yeah.
Really.
and-
We do. So we have lots of data stories as well, as you brought up the data, and data applies as well as like a cyclical kind of method where every year. So we had a client once, and they're like, we are doing something about, I know, the most dangerous states. And the client came back to us and said, well, this idea has already been done by, this other company last year. I said, yeah, great. It's been done last year. It's been done the year before last year and the year before and the year before by different companies. And every 6 months, another company is doing this with fresh data, fresh insights, fresh expertise. Therefore, it works. That's exactly what we should do because it will work. And when I showed the client, let's just Google, 2025, 2024, 2023, different companies have done the same kind of idea, but with different data sets, different methodologies, different expertise, expert quotes, and it worked. And it's not a unique idea. It's, we don't take anyone's ideas. We just take an idea that works and has worked for the past 20 years, every year, right? And then we do it. So it works with data as well, yeah.
Something that like come to my mind just now, because it's going to get very, again, we talked at the beginning before we got the gremlins attacked us, but when, we know things are going to get super complex in terms of like tracking performance and stuff. Traffic's going to die for a lot of people. It's going to keep dropping, and especially for the news sort of publishers, that they find it very hard, because of the way things have been going on with Google Discover and so on. How do you rate like what's a good sort of source? Like if traffic's going to continue to drop, do you still go on like sort of those sort of things like domain ranking, or what kind of metrics are you going to go on, especially if traffic like it's not really a great indicator going forward, perhaps?
So when you say metrics, is it like metrics for getting a placement on a specific website? Like
if you're going to target, if you're going to target specific publishers, like what do you go off apart from, the usual big names that, the Times and whatever?
Yeah, I think there's more to, of course, and that like there's more to the links than just the metrics. And that's why you are asking it. It is traffic, but also I think link velocity is also important. So I'd rather have fresh links from a lower DR and lower traffic website than have a link on the BBC that, we had like 2 years ago. That link, I think link velocity is a very important factor. I mean, the higher tier the domain, the better. But I think just links without link velocity is not as powerful as, like fresh links hitting the website. But the higher tier, the higher traffic, the website, of course, the better it is, the more trust it instills in front of people, but also in front of like AI and Google as well. And I don't think that's going to change. So the higher tier the publisher, the more traffic they have. I think the traffic is still an indication of how trusted a website is, because if it doesn't have traffic, it means Google doesn't really trust it. And we want links on websites that is trusted by Google, that is trusted by other, AI search systems.
Yeah. And obviously YouTube is a very influential, source now. Obviously, it always has been, but especially now with data's coming out about how influential it is about ChatGPT, visibility, and so on. Is that something you're increasing your sort of how much you're targeting, like trying to get links on YouTube?
We are not doubling down on YouTube yet, because it's kind of a different service, right? But for now, we are just focusing on on the press. But I think YouTube is something that people should leverage, definitely. Like YouTube, genuine information about a brand on YouTube, it's going to be more and more effective, because again, it's hard to replicate, right? It's not easy to replicate and to almost like flood YouTube with information. with quality videos. So I think YouTube should be something that people and brands should definitely leverage.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's always like this question like about guest posts. What is your viewpoint on those these days?
So of course, we don't do guest posts. We never paid for any link in the past, 5 years. But I'm always saying to clients and to people, yes, you should leverage guest posts because they work. Not the types of like phantom websites with zero traffic and exact match anchor text and whatever, old school guest post types. But if you can find genuine websites that do have traffic, which means, again, Google likes the website, and they have traffic that's kind of not dropping and relevant to the niche, then I would say people should leverage guest posts because they work. As a digital PR company who never paid for any links, I can say guest posts do work, and it should be combined. You should do guest posts, and you should do digital PR, and you should do many other types of link building as well. Because I don't think people should just do digital PR, and I don't think people should do just guest posts. They should mix everything together to have a genuine, varied link profile, and that's what works. Like we've seen it with hundreds of our clients, and I've seen it with some really, really big, even publisher websites who were engaged in buying guest posts, and they are smashing it. Some websites that you would not even think that they are actually running digital PR or buying links, and they are actually doing it, and they invest hundreds of thousands every year, or maybe millions every year into link building, which you would think like, oh my God, like they are so big, like they would not need that. It works, and people should do it.
Yeah, interesting. And yeah, I guess you kind of touched upon it, but I think again, most companies I've worked at don't do enough or worked with. But how should people be better utilizing like the client's expertise for digital PR? And that's talking about not just clients, but if you're working for a brand, internally, how can you make sure that experts in your company are better being utilized? Because I feel like that's such a quick win. You got these experts are sitting there and you're not using them.
Yep.
But then again, I guess people have to, like, in this new world that we live in, to be a bit more open to getting their face out there, their voice out there. It's everything's about transparency and trust, and you're not going to do that if you hide,
100%. Like we have, some really big clients who said, hey, let's, do expert quotes, but we prefer not to, our team can approve the quotes and our team can be behind the quotes. So our CEO said they don't want to be the face of, of the company, or they don't want to come forward. Therefore, we will approve the quotes, but just say a spokesperson. And, that works well because, even sometimes like all the big Google or many other companies have a spokesperson who they don't name. And then they do like a statement or an expert commentary, which is normal in the PR industry. But I think it's more powerful when you actually have the person. You can link to their LinkedIn profile, and you can showcase that, hey, this is a real person. There was in the PR world, there are lots of many smaller agencies who have been doing like fake experts, and there's been a big outcry in the industry about them. And rightfully so. You should not make up fake experts with AI images and so on. And that's why if you have a expert who you can present with their LinkedIn profile, with their credentials, and say, this is a hair surgeon at this hair clinic, and they reveal the things you should not do when you're washing your hair because you might get, you might have hair loss from it. And if you can show the actual credentials of the person, that's going to be way more powerful than when another agency is going to pitch something like, oh, like a spokesperson said that. It's still going to work, but a journalist would prefer somebody who does have credentials. So I think the most important thing is at the onboarding stage, ask for an expert, like strictly say, we need an expert from your team. We need them to be available if they need to approve the quotes. We can even, guide you with what journalists would expect from you and then approve them. Or you should also say, please, if you provide quotes, don't provide us AI quotes, because many times the experts are going to, ChatGPT and provide an AI quote, which is, it's their voice. So as long as they approve, they approve of that, it's still their voice. But journalists are skeptical. Therefore, we encourage clients to provide, human written quotes if possible. But unfortunately, many clients might just want to go and say, oh, give me a quote on this. And then they, even though they are experts and it's their approved kind of messaging, they still send us. Even yesterday, we had a client and we said, oh my God, let's go back to the client and say, can they actually write it up manually? Because even though it comes from the expert and it's accurate and it has been approved by them, we don't want it to look like an AI quote. So ensure that your clients are actually going to send you human quotes. I think that's a good leverage now, especially when I've seen so many press releases and so many even stories that have got BBC coverage where the quote was AI written. Maybe not AI written, but it was maybe restructured with AI. So maybe the person can just dictate something and just say, hey, this is what you should not do. And then the AI would just rewrite it a little bit so it flows better, but it still can read like AI. So maybe encourage the clients to try to write it themselves. If it's an AI quote and if a real expert is behind it, it's still going to be used many times by journalists, but just ensure that you really present authenticity with the client. I think that's the most important thing. Present the real expert and their voice.
Yeah, and just from my own experiences, I know that I'm sure you've seen this, is that when journalists, if you send them some sort of quote or some piece with expert commentary in it, a lot of the time they're going to want to, if they follow up with other questions, or they're going to want, if they want to do a continued piece around it, they're going to want to have that continued communication. And like you're saying, if you're kind of closed off and you're like, no, we can only do these quotes, then it's going to damage your chances of getting coverage. And also, like you say, in future, they're not going to keep coming back to you if all you're going to supply these sort of copy and paste sort of quotes or whatever, kind of very basic quotes, or you're not open to talking about it and show your face or whatever. I just feel it's going to be the world we're going to live in future. If Sam Altman and stuff have their way about it, we're going to have to prove we're a human just to do voting and stuff. So,
and that is true. And the more capable we are of proving that, the more leverage we will have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why everyone's flooding Reddit and so on and so forth, because they actually want to, people buy from people, at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, finish off on the last few things. I think this is a good place to end. And we kind of touched upon it before, but where do you see the search market from 1 year from now? And also not just search market, but we kind of touched upon it and then kind of cut off. I'm really interested in your views on just AI generally. Where do you see this AI influencing people's behaviors and search and that kind of thing?
I think I'm too much of an AI optimist, and I might, just be a bit too wild in thinking. But I think in a year's time, if the models keep on evolving as they do, Opus 4.6 changed everything. And once Opus 4.6 level intelligence drops to, let's say, GPT 5.2 mini or GPT 5 mini, it will be wild, because Opus 4.6 is really good and it can do lots of things, but it's very expensive. So on some tasks, you would rather use a human, human kind of intelligence instead of AI intelligence to do some tasks, because it's more expensive than a human. But at most tasks, it's still, viable to use AI. But if that cost drops 10 times, and I think it will within a year, I don't know what's coming. If Opus 4.6 level AI drops to a GPT 5.2 mini level cost, it's going to be crazy. I don't know what's going to happen then, because then it's going to be very good and like almost like free. It's going to be so cheap. And so once that happens, you will have, as I said, I think my biggest vision is websites that are almost like self-aware of everything that's happening with user experience, with Google Analytics, with Google Search Console, with the competitors. Every time the competitor posts something, and let's say an article, and they start ranking for that article, the website will reverse engineer. It will write something way better. It will post it, and it will keep on tweaking the article until it outranks the competitor. And then the competitor will do the same. I don't know what's going to be. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be like almost like a live website that adjusts the pages, prunes pages, updates pages live as as days pass. And I think if WordPress will not implement something like that, then they will not be around for long, because the CMS-based websites are probably short-lived. Yeah.
Yeah, we've always seen the Chinese apparently have reduced massively the cost of how they're running their AI models, and the cost of each token and stuff has been massively reduced. And like you say, once you start, the main restriction right now is the cost, like behind it all. So once the likes of Google and OpenAI reduce that cost, then there's no limitations really. And then once AI starts, which already has, start learning from itself and developing itself, which like we have seen early stages of that, if that continues, there's no limits to how fast it can go, because that'll just accelerate it tenfold. And I think just lastly, I'll get your points on, it's going to be interesting to see how, I feel like it's going to be, I know some companies have started doing this already, but how organizations build their own AI data sort of model, so the AI is talking to that model to learn more about the brand itself and what the values it has, what it's about. Building that sort of infrastructure, that sort of intelligence, so that the AI can talk to it and understand it. But I think it's going to be so important going forward.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be like personalized, kind of almost like data set. I don't think there will be custom trained models for a company, because like the legacy, like the main frontier models, like the Opus and GPT, are so good that it would, and so cheap, and that it would not be worth for you to train a custom model just on your company. I think the way you pass the data and the way you create the systems that will allow these frontier models to leverage your own little data set that you have, and create almost like a brand persona of it. I think that's where the difference is going to be. I think the smaller models that are trained specifically for like a company, I don't think they will exist, because these large models are going to be so good and so cheap that there's no point to even train, just waste resources on training your own models, because it's going to change every 5 months, every 3 months. The new models are going to be more and more intelligent, and everything you build now in 6 months' time is going to be irrelevant.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah. I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but I know you're a busy man, and unfortunately some technical issues. We had less time, but it is what it is. Hopefully I'll get you back on sometime. But yeah, thanks for joining me today, Fery. I really appreciate your time as usual.
It was a pleasure. And as you said, we could talk about AI forever. And I feel like it sounds bad, but when we go to, let's say, an event or to a meeting where non-technical people are involved, and it's not like like not in our industry, I think I'm just looking for people to talk about this, because everything else like seems a bit less exciting to talk about. So yeah, I could talk about these topics for forever, and are my favorite topics. For sure.
I agree with all that. So yeah, I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Good to be here.